Before I get into this, I want you to really sit with the question at the center of it. Because by the end of this story, I think you're going to have a much stronger opinion than you do right now. Am I the asshole for taking my friend's no at face value instead of pushing past it? Stick around, because this one has layers, and the ending is not what most people expect. I'm 25 years old, and I have a close friend. I'll call her Claire, 24. We've known each other for almost 6 years, since college. She's one of those friends who feels like family, someone I'd drop everything for if she really needed me. And that friendship is exactly why what happened between us hit so hard. Let me give you a little more background, because I think it matters for what comes later. Claire and I met freshman year, randomly assigned to the same study group for a class neither of us cared about. We weren't close right away. It took almost a full year before we became actual friends. The kind who text every day, who show up at each other's places uninvited with snacks, who know each other's family drama in detail. Over 6 years, we've been through a lot together. Breakups, job losses, a really rough stretch when her dad was sick. I've seen her at her lowest points before, and she's seen me at mine. One thing that came up a lot over the years, especially in our late-night talks, was Claire's relationship with her mom. Her mom means well, genuinely, but she has a habit of deciding what Claire needs without asking. If Claire says she's fine, her mom shows up anyway. If Claire says she doesn't want to talk about something, her mom brings it up at dinner in front of the whole family. Claire has described it to me more than once as feeling like her own voice doesn't count. Like no matter what she says, someone else gets to decide what's actually true about her feelings. She told me, specifically, more than once, that the reason our friendship felt different, felt safer, was because I didn't do that. I took her seriously. If she said she was fine, I believed her unless she gave me a reason not to. If she said she didn't want to talk about something, I let it go instead of circling back to it anyway. She used to say things like, "You're the only person in my life who doesn't treat me like a problem to manage." I'm not saying this to pat myself on the back. I'm saying it because it's the entire foundation of why that night confused me so much for the past couple of months. Claire's been going through a rough patch. Nothing life-threatening, nothing that required a hospital or a crisis line, but real stress, the kind that eats away at you slowly, work deadlines piling up, a falling out with her roommate, family stuff she doesn't like to talk about. I noticed the signs before she ever said a word. She stopped replying to texts as fast. She canceled plans more than usual. When we did hang out, she seemed distracted, like part of her mind was always somewhere else. One evening, she came over to my place, and I could tell right away something was off. She looked exhausted. Not tired exhausted, but the kind of exhausted where a person just looks smaller than usual, like they've been carrying something heavy for too long. We were watching a show, and around 8 o'clock, it hit me. I hadn't seen her eat anything all day. Not a snack, not a coffee, nothing. So I paused the show and asked her, "Hey, have you eaten today?" She shook her head and said she wasn't hungry. I let it sit for a minute. Then I offered to order food. I told her I was going to get something for both of us anyway, and asked what she wanted. She said, "I'm not hungry." Again, flat, almost automatic. Now here's where I want you to pay close attention, because this is the exact moment everything that happened later hinges on. I know Claire. I know her well enough to notice when something isn't adding up. And in the back of my mind, I did wonder if "I'm not hungry" was code for something else. But I also know Claire hates being pushed. She's told me before, multiple times over the years, that she can't stand when people don't take her word for things. When people assume they know better than she does about her own needs. So I asked one more time, a few minutes later, gently, no pressure, just checking in. "You sure?" "I really don't mind ordering something small." Same answer. "I'm not hungry." And so, respecting what she told me twice, I dropped it. We kept watching the show. I didn't bring it up again for the rest of the night. When she left a couple hours later, everything seemed normal. We hugged. She thanked me for having her over. And she went home. I want you to remember that moment, the hug, the normal goodbye, because it makes what happened next even more confusing. Around 11 that night, I got a text from her. Not a casual text. Along she said she'd been upset since she left my place. She said that when someone is clearly struggling, clearly not okay, a real friend doesn't just accept the first no they hear. She said I should have known that I'm not hungry didn't actually mean she wasn't hungry. It meant she didn't have the energy to ask for help, and that a good friend would have ordered the food anyway, put it in front of her, and let her eat without needing to ask twice. I read that text probably 5 times before I responded, because I genuinely didn't know what to say. Part of me felt guilty, like maybe I had missed something important, but another part of me felt something closer to confusion, bordering on frustration, because how was I supposed to know the difference between an actual no and a no that secretly meant yes? I responded carefully. I told her I cared about her a lot and that I hoped she knew that, but I also told her honestly that I believe adults should be able to say what they mean. And when someone tells me no twice, I take that as their answer. I said I don't think it's my place to override someone's stated decision just because I think in the back of my mind that I might know better than they do about their own body and their own needs. She wrote back almost immediately. She said that when people are emotionally overwhelmed, sometimes they need someone else to push through their resistance for them, because in that moment, they can't advocate for themselves. She said real support means noticing what someone needs, even when they can't ask for it directly. I told her that expecting people to read your mind isn't fair to anyone. I said if she wants help, if she needs something specific from me, all she has to do is tell me clearly, and I will show up every single time. But I can't guess which no is a real no and which no is secretly a please don't listen to me. Nobody can do that reliably. Not even people who've known each other for 6 years. That conversation ended in a weird, unresolved place. Not a full fight, but definitely tension, the kind that sits heavy in your chest for days. Here's where it gets more complicated. And honestly, this is the part that made me start second-guessing myself even more. A couple of days later, I found out Claire had mentioned this whole situation to our friend group. Not in a dramatic, calling me out way, but enough that a few mutual friends reached out to check in with me, and their tone made it pretty clear which side they were leaning toward. One friend, someone I've known almost as long as Claire, told me flat out that he thought I was being too detached. He said that when someone you care about is struggling, you're supposed to notice the signs and act, even if they're telling you not to. He said real friendship sometimes means being a little pushy, because the alternative is watching someone you love suffer in silence just because they said the magic word no. Another friend was a little more balanced. She said she understood both sides, but she also gently suggested that maybe I could have read the room better. Maybe I could have just ordered the food anyway and let Claire decide whether to eat it once it arrived, instead of taking her answer as final. And I'll be honest with you, hearing that from multiple people in a row made me spiral a little. I started replaying the whole night over and over. Should I have ignored what she said? Should I have just ordered food behind her back and put it in front of her? Consequences be damned. Is that what a good friend does? Or is that exactly the kind of boundary crossing that Claire herself has told me she hates in other situations? Before I tell you what I figured out, let me tell you about a third friend, because her reaction actually shifted my thinking the most. This friend, I'll call her Priya, has known both of us since college too, and she's usually the most neutral person in our group, the one who doesn't take sides just to take sides. When I explained the whole situation to her, she didn't immediately land on you should have insisted or you did nothing wrong. She asked me a question instead. She asked, has Claire ever, even once, told you in advance that there might be times she needs you to push past what she says? And I said, no, never. Not once in 6 years. Priya said that was the actual problem, not what happened that night, but the fact that Claire was retroactively applying a rule that had never existed before, a rule she invented after the fact to explain her own hurt feelings. Priya pointed out that it's incredibly common for people to do this when they're struggling, to feel disappointed by how a moment went, and then reach backward for a reason that makes someone else responsible for that disappointment. Instead of sitting with the harder truth that maybe they just needed to ask more directly for what they wanted. That conversation with Priya didn't make me feel great, honestly, because it meant there wasn't a clean, comfortable answer where everyone gets to be right. It meant Claire's hurt was real, but the standard she was holding me to wasn't something I ever agreed to or even knew existed until she was already upset about me not meeting. Because here's the thing that nobody in the friend group seemed to be bringing up. Claire has been vocal for years about not wanting people to override her decisions. She's told me stories about her mother doing exactly that, showing up with food Claire didn't ask for, making decisions on her behalf because she knew best, and how suffocating and disrespectful it felt. She's told me that one of the things she values most about our friendship is that I don't do that I actually listen when she says something, and I don't treat her like she doesn't know her own mind. So when I really sat with it, I realized I wasn't just randomly detached that night. I was doing the exact thing she'd asked me to do consistently for years. I was taking her word seriously. I was treating her like an adult capable of making decisions about her own body. And now, in this one specific moment, that same behavior was suddenly being framed as a failure of friendship. I brought this up with her a couple days later. Once things had cooled down a little, I said, gently, I want to understand this, because I feel like I'm being asked to read your mind in a way that goes against everything you've told me you want from me. I reminded her of the conversations we'd had about her mom, about boundaries, about wanting to be trusted. She got quiet for a second, and then she said something that actually made a lot of sense, even if I still don't fully agree with the conclusion she drew from it. She said that in general, yes, she wants to be trusted and taken at her word. But she said that when she's in a genuine crisis, when she's truly not okay, there's a different version of her that shows up. One that says no to things she actually needs. Because admitting she needs help feels harder than just going without. She said in those specific moments, she needs someone to see past the words and act anyway. And look, I get why she feels that way. I do. Mental exhaustion does strange things to how people communicate. But here's my honest problem with that expectation, and I told her this directly. If the rule only applies sometimes, if no means no, except during the specific moments when it doesn't, then there's no way for me, or for anyone, to know which mode she's in without her telling us. I'm not a mind reader. None of her friends are. The only way any of us can actually get it right consistently is if she tells us clearly when she's in that harder place and needs us to push a little. Told her I was more than willing to learn a signal, a phrase, anything that would let me know, hey, this time don't take my no at face value, but I can't be expected to intuit that distinction on my own, especially when everything she's taught me up until that point was to do the opposite. She didn't have a clean response to that. She said she'd think about it. A few days after that conversation, she actually texted me again, this time a lot calmer. She said she'd been sitting with what I said, and she admitted that it probably wasn't fair to expect me to know something she'd never told me, especially when everything she'd said before pointed in the opposite direction. She still maintained that she wished I had pushed a little harder that night, purely on instinct. But she also said she understood why I didn't. Given everything, it wasn't a full resolution. More like both of us agreeing to see the other side without either of us fully changing our position. Things between us are still a little strained. Not broken, but not fully back to normal either. A couple of the mutual friends still think I handled it wrong, that I should have just known. That real love means pushing past someone's stated wishes when you can tell they're struggling. One of them actually said, half joking, half serious, if my friend needs saving from herself, I'm not going to ask permission first, which, honestly, sounds noble in theory, but makes me wonder how that same friend would react if someone did that to them over something they felt strongly about. But I keep coming back to the same thought. If I override someone's clearly stated no because I've decided I know better, and I happen to be right, people call that being a good, attentive friend. But if I do the exact same thing, and I happen to be wrong, that same behavior suddenly becomes controlling, disrespectful, an overreach. The action is identical, only the outcome changes how it gets judged. And I don't think it's fair to ask people to gamble on that outcome every single time, especially not with someone's autonomy. So I'll leave it to you. Am I the asshole for taking my friends? No, at face value, twice. instead of insisting, especially when she herself had spent years telling me that's exactly the kind of respect she wanted from me? Or should I have overridden her, pushed past her answer, and made the decision for her? Because deep down, I suspected something more was going on. Let me know what you think in the comments. Seriously, I want to hear both sides on this one. Because even now, I go back and forth. And if you've ever been in a situation like this, torn between respecting someone's words and trusting your gut that something deeper is going on, I'd really love to hear how you handled it. Because clearly, there's no perfect answer here. If this story kept you hooked, make sure you're subscribed. Because these real, messy, complicated situations are exactly what this channel is built around. And there's a lot more where this came from. See you in the next one!